So I got in this conversation with a group of friends at lunch, and this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. All my life, I struggled with masculinity. I didn't think I was that masculine simply because I didn't play ball sports because I struggled with the gender dysphoria, and I thought for the longest time that the masculine man was the big beefy bodybuilder that um, uh, got all the great looking women, and I thought that was a sign of masculinity. I was so wrong, and society is responsible for uh, causing that idea because we're really doing a lot of damage to men. And the term toxic masculinity is the big word right now. So when you say masculinity, most people they automatically relate it to toxic masculinity and think it's one and the same. That's not true. And as a matter of fact, when you break down what masculinity is and then you say it's toxic masculinity, I'm sorry, but there isn't a toxic masculinity because the behaviors defined as toxic masculinity are literally the opposite of masculinity. So, what is masculinity? Masculinity is opening the door for people. Masculinity is being kind and being gentle, being polite, being vulnerable. It is it's it's being willing to be open, but being strong. It's um, it's being willing to step out and to serve selflessly. It's it is being loyal to your spouse or your partner and treating them with respect. Now, many people believe that um, men who are promiscuous, that cheat on their partners, they call that toxic masculinity. I'm sorry, that's not. That's an insecure man who is not happy with himself and doesn't have the confidence, doesn't exude self esteem, that actually thinks less of themselves. That's why they cheat. That's why they need something more. They're not satisfied with what they have in life, and they're not driven by positive, productive things. Those are not masculine traits of a man. People say that toxic masculinity is the need to control things. Well, people who control things are insecure and they have a concern because they aren't confident in what's happening around them and they have to have control over that, even though they don't have control. To have real control is to allow your team and allow people around you to trust them and to count on them to do the right thing and to move forward in the right way. And that means you have to have the right people. And a masculine man will work to find the right people. He won't control people. He won't have be over them. A masculine man would help with household duties. Again, toxic masculinity. They say that this guy won't help with household duties, and he wants to do the men do the men work. Well, that's more of a bully. That's more of a chip on his shoulder, and that's not masculine. Masculine is he's going to be helpful to his spouse and in the household. And so masculinity is all about that. So there's saying it's toxic masculinity is again that's not true. That's somebody who has poor behavior, but that's not a masculine man. A masculine man doesn't control, doesn't say what he will and won't do as far as based on roles, sexist roles. He's willing to step up and help out. Now, masculine men are not sexually aggressive towards women or anybody. They are respectful to women. They don't they treat women with the utmost respect and make women feel comfortable, not make them feel uncomfortable. If a man assaults a woman or if a man treats a woman poorly, that is not a masculine man. That is a bully. That is a mature or immature individual that that's behaving like a brat. That's not masculinity. So, really, to say toxic masculinity exists, it doesn't exist. You're either masculine or you're not. You might have some masculine traits, but others not. Maybe, a lot of people have affairs, and that's not a sign of masculinity. That's a sign of selfishness, childishness, and that is contrary to masculinity. Masculine men can be calm and they can be quiet and they can be kind and gentle in the right moments. And at the same time, they can stand up and defend their family, defend their territory when it's needed to be defended. But they do so to be just and to be doing the right thing, because it takes a man to stand up for that territory. They don't run, they stand up, they hold their ground, and their word is their bond. And so to say that a masculine man, while can be vulnerable, he's not weak, and he doesn't allow himself to be pushed around. So he's tough, and he's strong, and he'll hold his ground. Even when he's afraid, he will hold his ground. He will do what's right. And he also knows when to walk away when the danger is present, that you have to walk away, but he won't surrender. He just will walk away and to alleviate tensions, and then he'll try to work things out and be reasonable about things. That's masculinity. Men who are violent are not masculine people. They're not masculine men. Bottom line is, if you think that getting into a fight in a bar is masculine, that's not. That's childish. It's immature. It's a bully. It's out of control. It's poor behavior. That's not masculinity. It's not toxic masculinity, because there really is no such thing as being a toxic masculine man. It doesn't work that way. So if you have somebody that, like, quite frankly, people that are out there beating up people, they're going in and gang violence and so on, that's not masculinity. That's immature, childish activities as bullying, and there's nothing masculine about that. So Men who hurt other people intentionally or try to take advantage of them, that those people aren't masculine. They are insecure people that are behaving poorly. So, I get it that it's tough to be a masculine man, but you can easily be that. Now, some people think that men who think that they're dominant, that they get the last word. Well, the truth is if, especially for Christians, that would be true. The men do have the last word, but that word comes after you take consideration of your partner and you make a decision together, and then the man is the one that delivers that message. But you're doing it in unison. When you don't do it in unison, when a man thinks he can override his partner, that's not a masculine trait. That's you have to be respectful to your partners, and you have to take into account what they want. And quite frankly, when you make decisions, if you and your partner are not in agreement, you should not override your partner's what your partner wants. Of course, if you discuss it and your partner says, "Well, I really don't like it, but you go ahead and do what you want, but but it's not a deal breaker," and you go ahead and do it, then you move forward. But you respect your partner. You work together, and your bond is one. So the idea that just because the man states or has the last word on it, that doesn't mean that his decision overrides that of a wife or somebody else that you're in partnership with. That's not the case. And I know a lot of Christians struggle with that, and a lot of men struggle with that, but that's not true. And you will go farther if you take that into account. If you make the decision together, and if you disagree, if your partner says it's okay for you to go ahead and move forward with that decision, then you can go ahead and move forward with that decision. But you really shouldn't do that. So it's just, I really think that understanding masculinity is an important part of overcoming issues on things like gender dysphoria. I think that in my case, that dysphoria was manifested by my lack of understanding of masculinity, of thinking that, I wasn't a masculine person. And the truth is I did a lot of masculine things all my life, including when I was in transition. And I treated people with respect. I was willing to help out, and I was willing to take some risk, calculated risk for the betterment of others. And I treated women extremely well, and I always have done that. That's a masculine trait, a very strong masculine trait. As a matter of fact, I had a friend. She had made a comment that she had said, the whole time that you were in transition, the one thing that I struggled with you is I never saw you as a feminine person, even when you were in makeup and dressed. You just didn't seem like that person. You always had more masculine traits. And she had this guy that she was dating at the time, and he was this big bodybuilder dude that was a referee and so on. And he went jogging by our office, and I said to her, I go, oh, I wish I was more masculine. She goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, I wish I had I was more cut and muscular, and that would fit me. And she started laughing, and she said, He's the biggest feminine person I know. He's more feminine than me, and you're way more masculine than him. And I didn't realize that. Just because a guy's a big bodybuilder, because he's like plays tough man and everything, those guys have a lot of feminine traits that we don't realize. Uh, some of them can be just really meticulous about how they do things, and just they can have extremely feminine characteristics, even though they look like big guys. There can be feminine guys that are playing NFL football, and there are feminine guys that play NFL football. It's like they're exposing their femininity publicly, and it just looks bizarre. But that's not just because you play football doesn't mean you're masculine. And so keep these things in mind, and I'm gonna dig in more on them. I'd like to share real experiences of guys that I work with in recovery that I'm going through. And I think a lot of people who struggle with substance abuse, that struggle with um, emotional issues, have an inaccurate view of what it is to be masculine, and uh, and maybe women have an inaccurate view of what it is to be feminine. Feminine, I think, doesn't mean that you're a pushover. There's strength in femininity too, and there's strength in their roles. And I think you can be very assertive and very powerful in each role. You can be very powerful in masculine roles, where you will make a huge difference to people through being kind, vulnerable, gentle, and open. That will allow you to be a leader. And so I think I think we've gone too far. I think society's gone too far of making masculinity be synonymous with the term toxic masculinity, which is not in the dictionary. It's really not a definition, even though I'm looking at WebMD for some pointers to reflect on as I'm talking with this. And I think you have to identify it as a bully, or you have to identify it as um, an immature man, an insecure man, a selfish man. All those things are not things that define masculine men. And I think society would be well served by talking about what it is to truly be masculine, and that we uh, go on a um, mission to help men understand what it is to truly be masculine, to stand up, and to be stand up guys, and to be sensitive stand up guys that are vulnerable yet tough, and their word is their bond, and they're honorable men that treat women properly. We need society to work on men to become examples of what it is to be a stand-up person, and be good for their partners, and be good for their families, for their kids, and help their kids. We need to help our kids understand what it is, what masculine and feminine means, and how to achieve those roles, so that we live healthier lives, we live better lives, and are more comfortable. Now, if you're a Christian, there's a guidebook on what it is to be masculine and feminine. And I realize that a lot of Christians, they don't like everything that book says. But I think that Christians take that book out of context. As a matter of fact, I know they do. I know we do. And that's because when we read that book, there's deep thought that goes into it, and we have to understand the meanings that are in that book. We have to understand how that is directing us. And sometimes that takes multiple read throughs of different books that are inside that book. And as Christians, you know that I'm talking about the Bible. And so I'll talk more about that. But I saved that part because if you're not a Christian, you can still learn what masculinity and femininity is and not what you think it is. And when you start to understand that, then you can apply it in your life and you can see how that works for you, and things can change. Your life can change based off of that. And when you become a stand-up man, a stand-up woman that embraces femininity and masculinity, you can find that there is so much you can do that is positive and reflects well and helps people to change their lives, helps them to live better, and helps them to be more comfortable as themselves and be stand up and have that peace, joy, and serenity that is distant for a lot of people. And so I encourage you as a Christian to use the number one self-help book. It's called the Bible. And I encourage you, no matter who you are, to look up the definitions of masculinity. Look up the definitions of toxic masculinity. You're not going to find it in the dictionary because it's not there. There is not a definition for toxic masculinity in the dictionary. And they contradict each other, so it's not really what it is. Look up femininity and start to really reflect on what masculinity and femininity is. And get rid of the term toxic masculinity. Just quit using it. Society just needs to stop with using it. If somebody is a bully, an immature person that lacks masculinity, then say they lack masculinity, which is a lot of the men, and a lot of women lack femininity. And so that is rampant. Now, I'm not saying that every man lacks masculine traits. It's possible because masculine men they have a significant amount of traits that are masculine. And it is possible for you to have weak areas. It's possible for you to have very masculine things you do and that are very healthy. And then there's things that you might have one hang up that is poor. You might have a poor behavior that you do that demonstrates a lack of masculinity. But that's something that you can work on. If you have all these masculine traits and there's like one or two areas where you lack masculinity, go to those areas and focus in on them and work on them so you can become more manly. And when I say manly, more masculine is what I mean. And maybe I should look up the definition of manly so I'm using it properly. I probably need to do that. So scratch that. So you can become more masculine. It's a good thing to be masculine. It's a good thing for men to be masculine. It's not a bad thing. And women, if you want a great man, you want a masculine man. One that's going to be kind, caring, and respectful to you. Somebody who's not going to cheat on you. Somebody who is going to work hard. And somebody who is willing to put themselves at risk for you, to protect you, and to make sure that life works better. Somebody that will help you and will become one with you. That's a masculine man. You know, just getting married to somebody doesn't mean you become one with them. And we'll talk about that in another video. And, you know, I'm not saying that I've got it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. As a matter of fact, I'll talk about things where I fall short in more videos. I'm working on this. I'm working on changing who I am, my life, and how I roll, and so that I become even more masculine, and I work on the traits where I have downfalls at. And so I'm with you. I'm just sharing these things because these things are very important for the change that's happened in my life, how I have self confidence and self esteem, and how I was able to overcome the gender dysphoria. It has a lot to do with realizing the masculine traits that I have in myself, and the self confidence, self esteem, and self security that I have that I didn't have before. At the same time, I would have never been this vulnerable to come out and tell you so much about me and just reveal so much about myself on YouTube. I would have never done that before. I couldn't do that. I couldn't sit there and do that and then have people be critical of me like I do today. Have people disagree with me. I couldn't handle that before, but now I can. I have no problems doing that. I have no problems with somebody totally disagreeing with me. Somebody, that doesn't matter. What you think of me is none of my business. That's a masculine trait. Okay. Being comfortable enough to let you think something totally different is a masculine trait. So, with that, I want to thank you for watching this video. If you've gotten this far, I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope you watch more of my videos coming up. I really appreciate it. So, thank you, and have a blessed day.